A workforce made up of people with diverse heritage also enables new and different ways of thinking and problem solving. This means your diverse heritage is an asset to decision making in your workplace. A study by American social scientist Professor Scott E. Page of the University of Michigan found that a group of diverse people was better at solving difficult problems than a group made up of talented individuals. The benefits of having people from different backgrounds who can bring unique experiences and different approaches to the table cannot be overstated, and according to Page's research, cannot be replicated in homogeneous groups. So, your diverse heritage is a financial asset and an asset to decision making.
Good evening, friends. I hope you all um, having a lovely evening. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Senior Professional Work Forum or PDF. My name is Washington Short, and I'll be the moderator for this evening. For those unfamiliar with PDF, our mission is to help diverse young professionals find fulfillment in the modern workplace. We are a group of volunteers eager to help others by giving them access to the knowledge, mindset, and network to become the best version of themselves. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Before we get started, please note that this is a recorded and live streamed session that will be distributed via social network, social media. Also, I would like everyone to update the names to enter on the cameras so we can better connect with each other. And lastly, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box as you have our opportunity to ask question directly later. Tonight, we are very fortunate to have the Commissioner Ting Tong. After a successful career in law, Ting has transitioned into a public life advocating for a successful multicultural Australia. He's a well-recognized and established community leader and is a strong, passionate advocate for a successful multicultural Australia, where the rights of all Australians, irrespective of their race or cultural backgrounds, are protected and respected. He has extensive frontline and hands-on experience engaged in working with culturally diverse communities. He believes that each of us, whatever our cultural heritage, has much to offer. This goes beyond linguistic skills, but also the ability to operate across cultures, contexts, as well as complex networks and relationships. It also means your ideas, perspective, paradigms, which leads to valuable innovation. With that, I would love to pass the stage to Jane.
Thank you for spending Thursday evening with me. And thank you for the very kind welcome, Washington, and the team at the Professional Development Forum. It's a great pleasure to join you this evening. So let me start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from which I'm joining you tonight, the lands of the Wool people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to acknowledge their connection to land, waters, and community and pay my respect to their elders past and present, acknowledge their emerging leaders. I acknowledge too the traditional custodians of all the First Nations from which you are joining, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander colleagues present this evening. So may I extend again my thanks to the PDF for this invitation to speak tonight. I wish to thank especially Jeffrey Wang, committee, and members of the PDF for your work, your tireless work in fostering and helping diverse young professionals to reach their full potential in the modern Australian workplace. The PDF asked me to present on the topic, how your diverse heritage is an asset in the workplace. As you can imagine, this is a topic close to my heart, both professionally as the Race Discrimination Commissioner and personally as a proud migrant of Chinese heritage, whose working life has taken place largely here in Australia. There are many ways your diverse heritage is an asset in the workplace. But before I speak in more detail about what these are, I want to take a moment to look at the context in which we all find ourselves on this discussion, namely a diverse Australia. So what does this diverse Australia look like? The 2016 census identified that 49% of us were born overseas or have at least one parent born overseas. And I think the figures have since gone up to more than 50%. So in short, almost or more than half of us virtually, our parents all were born overseas. In this virtual room itself, that figure presumably would be almost the predominant figure in terms of the diversity we see tonight in this room. So many Australians also speak a language other than English at home, and our cultural and religious backgrounds are many and varied, numbering in the hundreds. Australia is also home to the longest continuous culture in the world. Australia's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples hold a unique place in Australia's diverse population as its First Nations and as custodians of this land. At an official level, multiculturalism is the policy vehicle that supports and underpins this diverse Australia. The Australian public strongly endorses multiculturalism. The Scanlon Foundation's 2020 Mapping Social Cohesion survey found that 85% of Australians believe multiculturalism has been good for the country. Australia's laws, both at a national and state and territory level, support the principle of non-discrimination, including on the ground of diverse cultural heritage. The law under which I am appointed, for example, the Racial Discrimination Act of 1975, makes it unlawful to discriminate on the basis of race, color, descent, national origin, or ethnicity, or immigrant status. Such discriminatory treatment is unlawful in various areas of public life, including in employment. So what are some of the ways your diverse heritage is an asset in your workplace? I believe it can be an asset in a workplace and on a systemic level, that is at a micro and macro level. We know that diverse workplaces are better for financial returns, decision making, and productivity. First, research tells us that employees of diverse heritage bring strong economic benefits to workplaces. This means diverse heritage is a financial asset in a workplace, improving the financial performance of workplaces where such performance is an important driver. At an organizational level, research from McKinsey, most recently in 2018, shows a positive correlation between diversity and financial performance. The 2018 Delivering Through Diversity report showed that companies with the most ethnically diverse executive teams in both absolute representation and in ethnic mix are 33% more likely to outperform their peers on profitability. The report also revealed there is a penalty for not being ethnically diverse. Those in the fourth quartile of ethnic diversity for their executive teams are 29% more likely to underperform their peers on profitability. Second, a workforce made up of people with diverse heritage also enables new and different ways of thinking and problem solving. This means your diverse heritage is an asset to decision making in your workplace. A study by American social scientist Professor Scott E. Page of the University of Michigan found that a group of diverse people was better at solving difficult problems than a group made up of talented individuals. The benefits of having people from different backgrounds who can bring unique experiences and different approaches to the table cannot be overstated, and according to Page's research, cannot be replicated in homogeneous groups. So your diverse heritage is a financial asset and an asset to decision making. Third, your diverse heritage is an asset to your workplace because it boosts productivity. Places where people can work while embracing who they are. These are necessarily places where people thrive and productivity is a happy byproduct. The knock-on effect of this is a workplace productivity and profitability where profits are a central aim. Study of diversity and business opportunity, a performance by the Victorian Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission, 10% more employees feel included. An organization's work attendance can increase by approximately 1 day per year per employee. In contrast, organizations where workers must hide the cultural and linguistic differences from one another, and especially from their managers, are often places where representeeism exists. People come to work but are less productive because they cannot contribute in a comfortable, appropriate, and authentic way, or because there is no space for them to be visible and to be heard. Many of these employees also choose not to stay. For some, it means visibility or leaving parts of themselves at home. For others, the effects can be much more harmful, resulting in discrimination, vilification, or hate at work. We all know the stories of fewer opportunities for training and professional development, missed opportunities and promotions, less interest for high stakes work, inappropriate joke comments, prejudicial assumptions, and even outright racist interactions at desks and lunch tables, on factory floors and Friday night drinks with colleagues and clients. And all of these experiences necessarily reduce productivity and in many cases are active cost to workplaces. From both my professional and personal perspectives, I know that significant effort is needed to build Australia's workplaces in which employees' diverse heritage is automatically and consistently seen as an asset. In consultations for the Australian Human Rights Commission's recent report, known as Sharing the Stories of Australians, for example, the need for more inclusive workplace environments was often raised for gusts. Participants in a national survey conducted for report record instances in which visible expressions of their Muslim identities had led to different treatment and a lack of work opportunities. Across the nation, Australian Muslims also spoke to us about the type of simple adjustments that could resolve some of this discrimination and harm they experience in workplaces. A workplace that recognizes your diverse heritage as an asset and creates a culturally responsive environment where its staff creates a workplace of choice, a place where people want to be and a place where they will strive to stay. As I mentioned at the outset, I believe workplaces where your diverse heritage as an asset also has a role to play in a macro way, contributing to the shape of Australian public life in an important way. What do I mean by this? The representation of Australia's cultural and linguistic diversity is missing from many areas of Australia's public life, including in Australia's workplaces. For me, this is one of the most compelling reasons why your diverse heritage should be recognized by you and your workplace as an asset, as well as reasons set out at birth. Workplaces that acknowledge and value the employees' diverse heritage also create a culturally capable and responsive environment for their customers, clients, and stakeholders. These workplaces have the added bonus of reflecting the community back to itself, of representing the rich diversity of the Australian population, as well as delivering services, products, and policies that match the needs and wants of the community. The benefits of this are crucially important in both the public and private sectors for those looking to make money, which many of us are. Such an approach would increase profitability, giving your customers or clients what they want and need, when they want and need it, in an appropriate, and I mean culturally appropriate way too. And for those who are delivering services, equal access to appropriate tailored services and programs will be your currency. For those of you developing products, a diverse workplace will make inroads into addressing unconscious biases and assumptions that might otherwise reduce your customer pool. For those working to deliver public services, this will help build confidence that you are responsive to communities' concerns and priorities, and that you will deliver culturally safe, appropriate, and effective services, easily accessible to those you serve. For those of you making policy, this will increase the depth of your workplace policy design and development and allow a more thoughtful and tailored approach. Now, all of these benefits that can be directly traced back to recognizing your diverse heritage as an asset have a crucial macro effect. They in turn foster an inclusive and responsive and respectful community, In this way, your diverse heritage is an asset that can affect change on long-established structures and institutions. If recognized and nurtured within your workplace, your diverse heritage can help build representative organizations and institutions. The importance of culturally diverse representation and participation in Australia's workplaces cannot be underestimated. This means both Indigenous representation as well as representation of those of other culturally diverse backgrounds. Diverse leadership in those sectors is an integral component for increasing diversity and progressing more representative organizations and institutions, but that's probably a conversation for another day. If organizations are serious about promoting a culturally diverse workforce, then it is critical that they examine the leadership, accountability, and workforce and workplace culture to ensure that they are functioning in a way that best attracts, promotes, and nurtures a multicultural workforce. Let me close today because we want to take some questions and have a bit of conversation. Let me close today by sharing some information about several initiatives of the Commission of direct relevance to this evening's topic. The Commission called for the development of a national anti-racism framework in March this year. The National Anti-Racism Framework will be a long-term, central reference point to guide actions on anti-racism and equality by all levels of government, peak bodies, NGOs, communities, educators, businesses, and other sectors. There has been limited discussion in this country about race among our national leaders, and little in the way of national initiatives and activities focused on promoting and protecting the rights of all Australians to be free from discrimination based on race, ethnicity, cultural identity, or nationality. There is, however, a broad-ranging worldwide conversation that's happening right now about racism and racial equality, as well as the importance of anti-racism in maintaining national security and safety. The proposal we put forward is a starting point only, designed to begin discussions about what an anti-racism framework could look like in Australia. The central role of Australian workplaces is recognized in the framework. We are undertaking further in-depth consultations and engagements to develop the framework, and this will include consultations with the corporate and public sectors in recognizing the pivotal role that workplaces play as a driver for structural change. The Commission is also updating its workplace cultural diversity tool. This will be an online learning and audit tool that supports organizations to evaluate the relationship to cultural diversity and anti-racism and enhance their ability to foster safe, inclusive, and respectful workplaces. In short, it also helps assess whether organizations are recognizing diverse heritage as an asset. The tool will allow organizations to assess their progress against a number of good practices goals. Together, these good practices goals will support organizations to increase cultural diversity and safety in the workplace. The tool will provide relevant information and resources to lend practical assistance to organizations at various points of their journey to embracing the employees' cultural heritage. More information about these programs and projects can be found on the Commission's website or by contacting my office. I know some of you joining tonight will likely be involved with the Commission in consultations and discussions on these important initiatives. For me, cultural diversity is a cornerstone of the creation of a 21st century Australia, capable of maximizing its strengths and geographical reality, all the while promoting the full participation and rights of all its citizens. Even while we acknowledge and laud ourselves as a successful, culturally diverse nation, let us not forget that there remains much work to be done to make significant progress in achieving this goal. Cultural diversity success starts and ends with acceptance, respect, and trust of each other as fellow humans. After all, cultural diversity is not something we do, it's who we are. I'm committed, and the Commission is committed, to create an environment and culture in Australia that value and harness the full contributions, potential, and attributes of people from across our cultural diversity. But even as we strive to foster workplaces and businesses' acknowledgement, recognition, and appreciation of cultural diversity, as an important benefit and asset to an organization's bottom line and productivity, we must never forget that social justice and human rights imperatives of promoting and protecting racial justice and equality must remain the key focus of our work in relation to cultural diversity. It is not just about profits and productivity, but it is about the inherent rights of people to be able to live and to be treated fairly and equally, irrespective of their racial or cultural background. The fight against racism is not only against the individuals, but it is also against systems and institutions that practice, perpetuate, and reinforce racism in any form. So thank you again for the invitation to speak and for your attention and your attendance today. I look forward to continuing our conversation in the Q&A session. So thank you very much.
Please, everybody, feel free to ask questions to the commissioner. Ivan, would you like to ask your question?
Thanks, Washington. Thanks, Commissioner. My question to you is on two fronts. I think I'd like to know more about your thoughts. I totally understand about the anti-discrimination aspect of what we need to do with businesses and organizations. My thoughts are, my query to you is more on the productivity and the profitability attributes towards businesses. If you had someone who was, let's say, a Caucasian who has grown up in Singapore or Hong Kong or somewhere overseas, who's got a very high level of cultural intelligence about the Asian communities, compared that to an ABC, Australian-born Chinese, who has grown up in Australia, who's more Aussie than most Aussies, but just happens to be Chinese from a cultural background, but have very little cultural intelligence. Right. What would the impact on both those individuals be to the profitability and bottom line of a business from a cultural intelligence and value add perspective? Your thoughts on that?
And thank you for that question. In terms of the work we do, I'm the Race Discrimination Commissioner. Race means everybody. It's not race to mean Chinese or migrants or non-European or white. I mean, to the extent where even the mainstream committee that largely European or white face discrimination, that's my role. So we centralize that as a overarching role in diversity. It's not about promoting migrants who are from a Asian background or African background or non-white. If we do that, I think we're going to have real trouble trying to figure out what we this way are about. So when you talk about the issues you talk about, organizations will make decisions based on the best person for the job. And I think that's an important criteria. There's much talk about recently about, representation means of giving an opportunity to people who are different background. Now, I agree entirely with that. We're far behind in some of the representation states. We need to give opportunity, and it means some form of a proactive policy that encourages that we should do that. But for me, the ultimate criteria still is that person up to the job. If race is the only criteria, then it shouldn't be, because I think it's going to really create that sort of notion that is race-based, and it's in some form creates difficulty in trying to define what racism is about. So if a Caucasian, as you mentioned, who has all the cultural attributes, I think it's a good thing to have. When we argue for Australia to be able to engage with Asia, we don't mean for us all Asians to be up there, right, and place whole parliament with Asians. No idea that 70% European and ethnic sections should be up there, culturally able to interact, to be able to be engaged. Now, where the shortcoming might be is this: it's difficult because it's not a natural attribute. And you're right, there are Asians who've been here a long time, 4 generations were more Aussie than 4 white than somebody else has been here before. And so the question is, there is no quick fix to this and say this is the way it works, because there isn't. It's about looking at attributes of people and saying, what do they deliver? If a person who is Caucasian background can deliver that cultural capacity, I think that's a good thing to have. And that's the kind of Australia we want. And we've been arguing for that to happen. And what it means as well, it means that hopefully racism is going to be lowered because they understand far better. It doesn't mean it's going to happen all the time. There are very smart people who are culturally competent who still have a view about Asians or anyone else. So there's not a fixed, quick answer and said this will solve a problem. But the important issue is this. It's not about protecting attributes of people saying, I'm Asian, I got more rights. Well, you don't. It's about protecting the equal rights of people from discrimination where it exists. And that means that people are going to be barred, the barriers are going to be different because you are Asian, then that's wrong. And we look for answers to try and find ways to break down those barriers. I hope that answers your question. It's not a complete answer because there isn't a complete answer to this.
No, that probably addresses it far better than a lot of commentators that I've heard speak on this particular subject. And I think that it highlights the need for everyone to increase their cultural intelligence across the board. And I wish that more businesses, when they're making hiring decisions, include that element in terms of a measure of a candidate's cultural intelligence, regardless of their race.
Yeah, and this is part of that dilemma about the existing condition we're in. Most non-European Asian or Anglo-Saxon who achieve high level of representation in this country in terms of the role which they play. I mean, it could be department secretary, whatever. Unfortunately, they feel the need to blend in, so they're in that sense more capable as whites than white. They're doing a far better job there. Now, is it right or wrong? Well, you can't blame people for wanting to fit in and get the best possible. But then you say, well, an Indian got a job. Isn't that a good thing? Well, it's a good thing, right? The issue would be this: does it make a difference because a person's racial cultural background having achieved this, or the prime minister is Japanese of this country? Does it make a difference? And the point is, it should make a difference. Right? If it doesn't, then it's fine. We're all equal, and everybody gets a job, no matter what. Anyone can be prime minister, or even a Muslim in this country. Well, we're still some way to do that. But the attributes are terribly important. Saying, what does that mean to have representation coming from different background? Well, it means having the capacity to make a difference. Now, I'm not putting pressure on people who said, well, the fourth generation Chinese here is more Anglo than the average Anglo. And that's all right too, because that's part of that diversity mix, that they're able to find ways to accommodate themselves. So it's not about identity saying, well, you Chinese, behave Chinese, please, for heaven's sake. I get it all the time too, I make you hold chopsticks. Do you speak Chinese or do Chinese songs and all that? Well, hang on, I don't do Chinese songs, mate. I speak English, right? And is it a problem, right? Yes, there are barriers there. But the whole point is this. It's about that equality that allows that flexibility where your attribute is not sending your way. In fact, when it rises, it becomes positive for you. But as I've said before, you must deliver on your role and your expertise, because you can't do the job, mate. Why should you get up there? Anybody else? I was at a court, named Big Johnson, when he said, we need to open the doors of opportunities, but we must teach people to walk through those doors. And then for me, as I've said before, I think Jeffrey heard this for 14,000 times. And sometimes it's not just walking through those doors, but it's being able to stay in the room, right? Because no point we get 3 years, we're the Chinese, we're Indian, we're an African. That was great. And what else do you want? We prove equality exists. Well, it doesn't. In me, is that capacity to be able to stand there and contribute, in a consistent and in a persistent way.
Kevin, would you like to ask a question?
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we can.
Firstly, thank you, PDF, for hosting this evening, and thanks to the Commissioner for your time. It's been great to listen to you talk. You mentioned just then about, being able to walk through the doors. I think my question is a two-part question, if you may. Just a little bit about personal experience. I work in the media and communications industry, and I've sort of felt I've failed to walk through those doors because, during that hiring process, there has been, a perception of who I might be, just because based on what I look like. So, some of that feedback has been, oh, you seem to be more analytical, you're more uh, reserved than other candidates, and this is why, we're not going with you. So I wondered if you had any advice, just for, a broader audience of how to, um, how is someone able to walk through those doors if, when faced with this type of perception. And then I guess the second part to that question is, do you think that organizations and companies and firms are doing more in this space, to get rid of some of these perceptions and to increase their, I guess, their cultural awareness and cultural capital?
I'll answer the second question first because that we can get out of the way. We're in a time where we're far better placed, than we've been in the past. Organizations you mentioned, accounting firm, PwC or whatever, public service. There are clear regimes in place and the aspiration to make a difference. So we are far better. The only issue is, can we do a better job than that? Of course we can. And sometimes, to be fair, there's a lot of tick the boxes as well. So that we're framing it around different imperatives. Nothing wrong with that. If we want visibility, it gets us there. But it's a complex issue. It's far deeper than simply tick the box and say, look, we got 4, Chinese here and 2 Indians, so we've done a job. Well, we haven't. Right? We need to take away that sort of barrier in terms of our temperament and understanding what the issues might be. I'll give an example. My daughter is a doctor. And she works in the hospital, used to, because she gets moved around a fair bit that has a predominantly Chinese sort of demographics. For me, the issue is this. You get to the hospital, and this is probably a general statement, and you see the 10 doctors there, and there are maybe 20 there, but let's say 10 doctors there, and they're all Anglo-Saxon, mostly male. You don't blink an eye. You don't question them. So, that's good. Hospital, it's a hospital. They treat a lot of Chinese are wonderful. But if you get an hospital, and out of 10, there are 4, 4 Indians and 4 Chinese and 2 Africans. I tell you what, the big question is, what's this miss like? Why is this? And the question is why? What would that make a difference? Are they not good doctors? Because, we're Asians and they're Africans. So, but that's the almost immediate impasse people have. I only pick those barriers and saying, and that's the fundamental issue about how we address the prejudices we have. Issues about why would it matter materially? Like you said, can walk in those doors because look at you, and then they have stereotypical views about who you are and what you can contribute. So, is there an answer? Can I give you a key to unlock those doors? Well, I'm sorry, I don't have those keys. I'm trying to look for those keys too. Now, but you asked a question, and I put myself in my personal experience. I came as an international student from Malaysia when I was full grown adult because we did HSC there, which is the higher education and all that stuff. So I was 19 when I came over. Did a degree and I went for law and then stayed on. Practiced law 20 odd years. I didn't really morph into public service. I tripped over it. I guess someone said, look, you want to apply for this job. So I took on a job as the chair of the Victoria Multicultural Commission in Victoria. And then when it's finished, I took a role. I didn't want to go back to law. And I said, look, I think I want to be able to contribute in this particular area, and took a job as the director of multicultural engagement in Sydney University. And then this job came up, and then someone said, maybe you want to apply for it, and I applied. So my media advisor, who we had a discussion recently about trying to do an op-ed on certain issues. And he said, why don't you tell your story? He says, you came as a migrant, and you've done well. Huh? I could have done better, but if this is the top job for a Chinese, we're in trouble because we do better than this because it's not the most important job there is, right? But I think if you're looking around, I might be the most senior Chinese, migrant in terms of public service, which is horrendous to think that's where we can do. Right? But how did I get where I am? I don't have the answer. All I know is a sense of self-belief, who I am,
your personal drive and your personal attributes are very important. Yeah, development, professional capacity. You must be able to do a job. You had to be a good lawyer. Come on, if you don't be a good lawyer, you just can't say, "Well, I want this job." And a lot of that is about the capacity for adaptive ability to know, circumstances and situations, and to be able to, find resources that gives you advantage. And to be fair, some of you may know, but I ran for political party as well, and I wanted to be in parliament. I actually ran for a seat in Victoria way back, and I've seen the inside of what the political parties do. Right? You talk about race issues, and I'll tell you about it when I'm retired. I write a book about this. Right? And there are impediments, and up to a point, it's difficult. So you go to different ways to achieve different things. But I tell you, want to keep pursuing that, because you must find your capacity in the places of shared meanings and values. Because you're the odd person now and said, "Oh, look, I'm Chinese, I believe in all this," and every time it's a fight about race issues. Well, there isn't a lot of shared values. At the end of the day, you must be in the same boat and rowing in the same direction. And then you add to that your attribute of who you are. Now, does it mean that your problem is solved? I tell you, it's not. And I mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again because it's an important lesson. When I was the head of a statutory body in Victoria, I had one officer who actually said this to me: "I don't know what you do in the Chinese community, but this is what we do in government." Now, I'm head of my department. Now, what do you do? Now, you can play the race issues and say, "Oh, look, have you sacked tomorrow?" Because that's a racist, remark. And that's what you do is it's completely wrong. But then you think about it and say, "Look, hang on. You're the head of such a body. You're the leader. You're the guy in charge. Is that all you can do?" And you don't. You find ways to mitigate that. So within a year, you change organization. The person took a secondment and never came back. And I took the opportunity to change the organization. Now, it's a far better result than to embroil in the public media spit about, race issues and, the commissioner was attacked and all of that. It wouldn't have done the job for me. And so an important attribute is how do you play to that? Now, we all have different circumstances. Not everyone can do that, right? And the opportunities might not be there for you. But when you are in leadership position, I've said this before, and this is where it goes with to Ivan's question. You could be an Asian and not have a cultural competence. That's fine. But if you do, use that, don't lose that, right? And this media advisor I have in the commission was quite interesting. He said, "Your story is interesting." It reminded me, so you've done well as a lawyer, you became a solicitor and all that, and high office, and you still, and it with an accent. I said, "Oh, gee, God, I didn't realize I got an accent. But thank you for telling me." And I do. I'm not the same as everybody else out there. I'm me, right? But what is this is, if you are the leader of the organization, you're in charge. And I've said, if you come to a job where it requires 5 leadership attributes and characteristics, you've got 6. And it's who you are. It's both your curse, because it will always be an issue for you, but it's also your asset. I'll say, I can see things differently. I can do things differently. And it's important that you do that. And I'll give you a case, an example before we turn off this. When I was running the Cultural Diversity Commission in Victoria, we had some money for funding organizations. And it will go before a committee when the applications are assessed, and then it'll come to me with the final list. And then you look at it and said, hang on, there's this African women weaving, basket weaving or sewing organization wanting $500. So where are we giving that? Oh, it's not important organization. So hang on. I've been there. I've seen them. They're far more important organizations because they're empowering women in a way that you can never do by giving them $40,000 to do something else. I said, well, take it away from someone else. And I took from, I don't know, am I taking for a Chinese group? Because so much goes to Chinese anyway. And I said, give it to them because it's important. Why? Because you're able to see things differently. Because your experience or where you've been, you're able to see it. And it helps organizations, particularly government, and the policies being made and the COVID-19 issues about how we deliver services to multicultural communities. We keep stuffing it up. We talk about it, but we're not prepared for that, right? Now, does it help? Of course it helps. It doesn't mean that it has to be an Asian guy up there doing it. It could be a Caucasian who is culturally capable. But it doesn't matter how we get there, but we need to get to that space where we find the capacity to be equal and it contribute with who we are.
So it's a wonderful conversation. Tao Lee has a question. I think it's an interesting question. Go ahead, Tao.
it's interesting. I haven't even asked it. Thanks, Commissioner. So I'm really curious, right? Because right now we've got we're doing reporting, which is your Workplace Gender Equality Act, where organization, if you report it, could potentially highlight that you're ticking all the boxes, then you become an employer of choice. Now, curious to understand how potentially having a cultural diversity act where you're reporting on how culturally diverse you are could uplift an organization, given how much given the statistics showing the micro and macro benefits on that. Is there ever a potential that it will become something that an organization will report on?
Australia is always a bit slow in most things. And this is where we need to change it. And the change will come when you get people who would say, hey, what about this? Look, it's a great country. We're so carefree. We're so easy. We don't feel the need to have many things. We're the only Western country, democracy, that doesn't have a Bill of Rights to protect. Why? Because we don't need that bank. We're all sensible people. We look after ourselves. We all do the right thing, right? Yes, to some extent, but we need something to guide us along, and it's a commitment statement from us as well. So we need that. Britain has, someone just raised an issue, and I had a statement in the media about race disparity, in particular workplaces, about wages. Now, it's going to take me a lot of years and a lot of gray hair to get to the point where we will have an equivalent race disparity audit as Britain has. Now, because we don't see the need for that. Doesn't mean it's not there. I like to be able to have in a project about exploring and researching the impact of racism in the workplaces, equivalent to what my colleague Kate Jenkins has done with sexual respect in the workplaces. Right? I like to have one equivalent to race because it hasn't been explored, but it's very hard. I mean, I'm trying to run an anti-racism campaign. I'm not being funded very well on that, and the notion is, do we need that? It's very divisive, Mr. Tan. And so we don't deal with that. And I've got the least, if I could use the word in the modern times, the least sexy job. Nobody wants it because every time you put up your hand, it's a very divisive area. Because I'm not promoting children's rights. I'm not promoting the rights of the disabled. I'm talking about an area which no one wants to talk about because you're calling me a racist. And there are politicians who tell me that it's dangerous to go near institutional racism issues because it means, we're attacking certain groups of people, right? And so this is a learning curve for us. It's about education as well, but I'm going ahead and doing it anyway. So next year, we will have anti-racism campaign that are public, right? You will have posters up there. You will have, media messages and all of that. They might like it, whatever, but it's important that we tell this message, and the framework is equally important. Inviting people to talk about race in this country. We need to find a framework to have proper discussion on your issues about, do we get this and that? Well, it won't come because you ask for it. It will come because you and people do it and make it happen, right? So, because no one else is going to do the job for you. It's a very difficult area, but I think it's an important area to talk about, racial discrimination in the workplaces. It has been looked at. And in my race area, we did the Race Discrimination Act 1975 and 1995. We added Section 18C. And then my predecessor 10 years ago ran a small campaign called Racism Stops With Me. That's all we had, discussions about it. But I tell you what, people getting abused out there, COVID-19 and racial discrimination is happening out there. And we're not dealing with it in a very, honest way, but this is the conversation we need to, and then professional groups like yours have the leverage. You have the standing, you have the soapboxes most of the time, if nothing else. And how do you articulate this? Be angry, but be productive in your anger, channel it, because there's so many angry people out there. I'm not an activist. I can't be. I'm a public servant. I got to channel in a way that makes sense. I like to be angry. And there are many moments in my life when in the evening I get very angry about everything. It's like, oh God, but that doesn't help me. I've said to some people, I said, look, you're a great activist, you're out there, but we can't all be out there trying to break from the outside, trying to break the gates. Someone has to be from the inside, open some of those gates too. right? So we all have different roles to play, right? And you'll find your role to play. But the point is how did we in your life make a difference? So we got from here to there, right? And it might be a small little thing, but it made a difference somewhere along the line.
Jeffrey has a question too. Would you like to ask the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for that. And I thought that was a great segue. Now that you mentioned about being angry because you thought you were going to get away with tonight without having to answer a question about the race in Fowler. I might also just add that Tao, who just asked the last question, is closely connected to her sister too, who's intimately involved. So for those of you on the call that might not be aware of the saga that's been going on, just a bit of background. There's a local candidate, Tu Lee, who has put her hand up to run for the seat of Fowler in the federal parliament. And the ALP has decided that they want to parachute in Christina Keneally, who was a former premier. Now, that's actually not the part that got me angry. The part that got me angry was when I read in the newspaper that Paul Keating weighed into this particular move. And this is, I quote, he said, "Local candidates may be genuine and well-meaning, but it would take them years to scramble to her level of executive ability if they can ever get there at all." So what he's effectively saying is that, no matter how hard you try, you probably won't get there, so stop trying. Nothing motivates us quite like a former prime minister telling us that you'll never get there. So how do you handle something like that happens in the public sphere? How do we, we get very angry, but how do you fight back from that sort of attitude in our leadership class?
Jeffrey, in my role as a public servant, you say nothing. No, look, I did put a statement, but very generic. I don't deal with individual cases. And I'm not about to, because there's internal party politics on all sides, I've seen the inner workings of political parties and what they do. And it's not uncommon, not just the Labour or Greens or anyone else. They all do it. And when you are as an Asian running to be pre-selected, and you're looking at, so that seat is got very high Asian population, and it's the blue seat, and I think I got a good chance to get it. But hang on, well, it's too easy for you. Go somewhere where it's marginal and prove how good you are. If you ain't good with your background, you should win the votes over. And that's the rationale always, right? So it's like, wait, hang on, you're there for a purpose. It's getting the votes and the spectrum. So we need to move beyond that, right? And how do you change the culture, and you give opportunities for which people of non-Anglo background or European background get the opportunity to escalate to a different level. Now, how do you do that? It's both a push and pull factor. You gotta have a talent, seriously. Yeah, it's a monster of a world out there. If you're not, you get undercut for it, then you shouldn't be in it, right? And then if you do, you need to in some way respect the mongrel within that organizations. Asian or not Asian, that doesn't matter. You're a Greek Italian. You got to have the capacity. What Paul Keating is saying is principle this: in the scheme of things, the political interest. We get talented people. We need to push them in. It's the overarching political interest, right? So Christina Keneally, with her background, getting into parliament, being there, would serve the multicultural community better if she had the opportunity, to get up there, to have a seat that's safe and to be a minister, right? And it can be done on the personalities of different people who are coming up who don't have the capacity, Asian or not. And so how do we get there? Firstly, Asians and non-European and Caucasian, they need to stick to it and do a good job. Most of them, after a while, will leave. I've seen too many of them. It's too hard. They're all racist anywhere. They're not going to be. Well, there are issues there, but you're not in the game. You're not to be up there, and you can't get to a point where you make meaningful, significant contribution. You're not going to get there, right? And I've said this before. When I was within the party, I said, look, I will trade 4 Asian MPs for 1 president of the party in the state. Because you will get your 4 MPs one day, and maybe a Tom, Dick, and Harry who's got
that, and Jane and whoever's got the color spectrum will get up there, right? But you don't necessarily walk into the inner sanctum to become the president of the party. And we get Asians who sit there and say, I don't want to be an MP. I want to be the president or secretary of this party, and I want to run it from the inside, because if they vote for you and you're up there, the culture is shifting, far more valuable. But we don't see it that way, right? And some people have said, look, now you join a political party in the wrong side because they don't really support my culture. Well, more reason why we should be in it, to change the culture of this country. More reason why we need to be in those places where you make a difference, even though it's so hard, right? And so it's having that capacity to do it. Now, Albanese may be right to the degree is that, stick to it, but it's easier said than done. I mean, I moved away after once and it's too hard for me, but I found other resources and ways that I can make a contribution here, not there, right? And then some people will in fact make contribution in that particular area, but finding, particularly, and I mentioned Asian strength because we're not very adept in political matters. We learn to do that. We can learn to be able to master the game as anyone else, and then be good in what they do. Now, if it was reversed, right, and Keneally was the local member once run, and then Tuli comes in and she was that, that would be no issue. She'd be shoe in, right? And then they're gonna be in fact boasting about her background. So, wow, this is great, So, is it fair? It's not fair. Politics is it's a tough area, right, by itself. But what it does is it's the attention that's been given now to the media, in the media is good because it highlights the plight of political parties about their commitment to cultural diversity and what it means in making that step necessary, support people from different backgrounds to get up there. Because it is tough. I tell you that it's very tough. I mean, I had situations when I had to, in fact, lobby in the pre-selection process and said parliamentarians were supporting me and said, look, I have to work twice as hard to get to the same starting block as Mr. Wilson. And then the response was, well, you just have to work twice as hard. And I have. Most of the time, I have to work twice as hard to be twice as good to prove myself. Is it fair? Of course it's not fair. Huh? But until such day when we have that parity, when everything's fair and equal, it means that we just have to work twice as hard, be twice as good to prove that we can get there. And so when will we be different? I don't want my kids being to do that, but that's why we do what we do, to try and open up and build those bridges.
Do you mind if I ask the last question? Thank you. Thank you. More in respect of say, if we get there and start to build that new culture, right? And then new people coming in, what would be your lifelong experience? What advice you give? Say somebody who has fought the battle, who has worked hard to get there and got there. What advice would you give to people to start into it?
Any particular field or just across? When you
Just
say
across the board.
and how to stay there and
Yeah, because you are on the pioneer, so you definitely have a much harder time than say somebody like me who's starting.
okay.
And you already have a lot of the ground already.
I'm different. And not everyone will be like me, right? I come from a different background and I've learned things and I'm prepared to do certain things to be able to achieve certain results and be, able and maintain my values. And that's it. I have a concept for myself and I can do that because for some reason, I do mediate and navigate between worlds quite well. I live in two worlds, right? In that sense, I can be in an Aussie environment and I believe I can be as good as the next person. I said, well, you want to talk Aussie? Let's talk Aussie. Yeah, talk shop and we get there. So I don't anywhere have a position where I said, oh, I'm Asian. They don't like me. I want to give them the opportunity to think about that, right? But I'm also very much Asian. I don't want to change. Oh, sure, I've got an accent. He speaks like that too. Well, I do. But if I can sit in the same place whether in fact in the low courts and anywhere else and still contribute and make a fundamental difference, what I then and be respected for what I do, it's a good place to start. And then I turn around and say, hey, I said, I'm speaking like this to you. I can speak Aussie and all of that. But I tell you, when I go home, I speak to my wife in Chinglish. you know what we do in Asian? Yeah. We do that. And you couldn't believe it. And so, how in the world did the guy do that? But for me, I'm relaxed and comfortable in the notion of who I am. And that for me is my cultural attribute of who I am. But when it comes to the game that's been out there and the things you do, you're not shortchanging yourself. You're not being hypocritical. You're not shifting, your character. You're not. But you're being adaptive. You know who you're working with. And that's why, I moved to the regional Victoria. Seriously, very few people, look like me or talk to me, but I'm very comfortable. Why? Because this sense of, I belong and I've got capacity to contribute and to get respected for what you are. But still at the end of the day, I'm an Asian Australian, Chinese. The things that I enjoy, the food, my outlook in life still shaped by that. But I'm capable of navigating in two worlds and living in all of that and looking at the best attributes from those particular. Some people live in 3, 4, 6, and you don't have to be Chinese or Asian doing that. It could be the Caucasian doing that and living in different worlds. And that's a good place for us to be.
That's it. Thank you so much, Tim. With that, I would like to conclude the session today. And a big thank you for committee team for your kindly give your time and share with us your wisdom. And also I'd like to thank you, the PDF team, for helping making this event possible. Just a reminder, our next event is next Thursday, 23rd of September, and you'll be joined by Steve York, an author, speaker, and negotiation coach. If you would like more information, please, there'll be a link on the chat box very shortly. With that, thank you very much, everybody.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Wang, the founder of the Professional Development Forum.
PDF was established to help young diverse professionals find fulfillment in the modern Australian workplace.
By asking questions to the most successful, influential and inspirational people we knew.
We were inspired by their stories of tenacity and passion.
We learned about the creative approaches to overcome challenges.
We believe that everyone, not just the elite few, should have access to the knowledge, mindset, and network to develop themselves.
By becoming the best version of ourselves, we lead a happier, more fulfilling life and inspire those around us to do the same.
Moving our events online has made us more accessible than ever. We share what we learned on our website, YouTube channel, and podcast. So please share this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell. We look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event.